Hello, everybody. My name is Friedel Fink from the Exist CIC, and I'm also a participant of the AYC Age program. Today, I'm going to talk to you about our crowdfunding campaign that we successfully launched and funded during the pandemic last year. And yeah, we really wanted to make our program happen, a girl mentoring program in Plymouth supporting girls' mental health and physical literacy and emotional literacy. So today I'm going to be sharing with you our personal experience of this running and launching this crowdfunding campaign. I'm not a crowdfunding expert by any means, but I had a lot of coaching during that time, and I'm going to share with you the records of this and see also where we had some learning. And yeah, you might be here because you want to support yourself, you want to support your project, your service or product that you want to launch. You might be wanting to start up a business, and whatever reason it is that brought you here, be welcome. I'm really happy to exploring with you how you could successfully crowdfund. Just about how we're running today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about our story of Big Sis, the basics of crowdfunding, and 7 questions, because it is actually much more valuable to ask questions what works and how to launch your campaign instead of looking at general advice. So I'm going to ask you lots of questions. And I'm also going to share a few resources with you that help me to set up this campaign. There are a lot of good reasons to crowdfund, but the biggest one you need to identify for yourself, and that will be your drive during setting up and running your crowdfunding campaign. What is your biggest reason to set this up? For us, it was certainly, we wanted to make this work we're doing more impactful, bringing the menstrual education work and the puberty education work to a wider range of students and young people, and that was our big reason. Of course, we wanted to raise the money to make that happen, but there are so many other reasons why crowdfunding can be beneficial and an amazing idea. You could just test your idea if you're not sure if it's going to work. It is an alternative funding source. So there are lots of different funding sources out there. For us personally, it was a little bit of opportunism, because we participated in the Plymouth Startup Weekend, and someone of Crowdfund UK sat in the jury, and that just gave me the idea, wow, why not to crowdfund? And I already had lots of people in my community that supported my work and that were supportive of helping out with the crowdfunder as well. So it just was a really good fit for us. It can be first steps to business. We actually incorporated during our crowdfunding campaign in order to have a bigger impact with what we're wanting to achieve. And it is also just an amazing community building tool to reach out to people about what you're passionate about, to meet others who feel the same. And actually, if you're setting up your crowdfunding campaign, your page, you have the basics to go into further funding applications with that, because you're making clear your why, your what, and how it's all gonna look like and unfold. So what does success mean to you? Does it mean that the crowdfunding campaign reaches its target, which is obviously wonderful if that happens? Or can you maybe identify throughout this webinar other things that are really positive about it that can help you to achieve your goals? Our story. I've been self-employed up to last year, February, and just realized I need to make more impact. I was working mostly with alternative school to get the subject matter of puberty education, but I wanted to bring it to a wider audience, and this is why I decided to set up the crowdfunding campaign. And our journey was a really treacherous one. So we launched our crowdfunding campaign in March, kind of coincided with the pandemic coming to England. And we had one person at our launch event showing up, which is a really dedicated person. And yeah, it was really, really difficult to get started, as you can imagine. So yeah, we kept going and we kept changing strategy quite often and staying attuned to what our audience needed at the time, trying to find offerings and services that would support them, but also supporting ourselves. And actually in July, we were beyond our target. We reached £18,900 in 109 days, which was a huge, huge success for us. And personally, during our campaign, we have incorporated as a company. So we wanted to take things a bit further and take the next steps into becoming more professional. We networked a lot in the local community and in the wider community. We were able to build a social media and newsletter following from scratch when new co-workers. And personally, because I've just stopped working in my old job that I didn't want to do anymore, I wanted to work with what I'm passionate about. I've quit my job and therefore didn't have income. And it actually generated income for me and a few other people at the time, which was invaluable, as you can imagine. And of course, now we've got the money to do an amazing project, which hopefully has a lot of impact for a lot of young girls. So where you might ask yourself where to actually crowdfund and where to get started, I'll share a guide with you later in the chat. But there are basically different types of crowdfunding. You can do a reward-based crowdfunder, which is what I'm going to talk about today, an equity-based one, which basically means that investors pledge for your project and they'll get some shares back from your company. That might not be the way you're choosing. I'm not going to go so much into this today, but also share a link for that. So, and then there's a mixture of the two, where it's reward-based, someone pledges to a project and gets something in return, a little goodie, some value. We're talking about it a bit later. And there are a few links to this as well I'm going to share here with you, where you can do your further research. But today we're going to talk about reward-based crowdfunding. I mentioned it earlier, it's better to ask questions, I think, than to give tips, because for each and every one of you, this is going to look differently, what this crowdfunder needs, what it's going to look like. So we're better asking questions. And one of the first questions to ask yourself is if you want to do this alone or if you rather do it in a team. From my experience, and one of the mistakes I made is that I was quite alone in it, and I did all the different jobs by myself in a time that was emotionally quite challenging. The pandemic was there. I didn't have an income. So really now I see that a support system is invaluable for anyone, really. And the crowdfunder is a big project in itself. So it's amazing to get support. I had a videographer because I knew that the marketing and the visuals of everything is going to be really important, and the way that speaks to people, especially if we can't meet in a place together, in a physical place. So I focused getting help with marketing and the video. There are a whole lot of different jobs that need to be done during a crowdfunder. You basically need to be, if you do it on your own, what I needed to be, is a marketeer, a content writer, a networker, an industry expert, mental health and education in my case. I had a videographer, so I didn't need to do that by myself. And I needed to oversee the whole project with all its different layers and elements. So actually now I can also see why would I do this on my own? I wouldn't do it on my own again, but it's actually also more fun to collaborate and to actually bring the message out already. And your team is part of your supporters and people who take the message out which secures the success of what you're doing. It is quite a elaborate process, a crowdfunder, and involves different stages that need to be thought through well, which I would say I started in quite a trial and error mode. I had some planning. I had some running that was quite planned and in order, but there was much more than I was prepared to look at. In the planning stage needs to be involved to thinking about your key message, what you actually want to achieve, which platform to use. Starting to talk about your project already with your friends and family, brainstorm the rewards, and the creating all of this, creating all your marketing material, creating the marketing plan, creating the outreach plan to whom to reach out. And the running requires that you stay aware of what is actually happening there. So keeping your own motivation up, reacting to changes within the crowdfunder, reacting to changes to your crowd. Maybe you draw a new type of people in and they want different rewards, or they need certain other things that you're not prepared in the beginning, because you can't foresee everything with planning. You need to stay flexible and see what happens on the way. And to shift strategy if that needs be. And a very important aspect of it is as well to evaluate afterwards, to follow up to your crowd, say thank you, build these relationships further, because they are the key people, if you're starting up a business especially, that help your organization or your project on its feet, and you want to stay in touch with these people. And so, even if we are a small team, we were just making that visible as well in our crowdfunding campaign, because it looks much better to be in a team. It's much more fun. And it gives people an idea who is behind the project, and there's something invaluable to also make that visible in your marketing or on your crowdfunding page once you've set it up. A lot of the people who actually supported us became collaborators or somewhat involved in the project. 2 people are co-workers that I'm working with with the project at the moment. And other people work voluntarily for us or collaborate in certain projects. So it's been a really, really incredible journey of drawing people in. And if you don't know where to get started at all, maybe you can start thinking, who in my existing community, who in my circle of friends shares my values and has certain skills that might help me to bring this crowdfunder or this project to life. And next, it's really, really important to make yourself a really well-prepared crowd map. So thinking about who is your crowd is important, because it requires the planning of the next steps in the crowdfunding campaign. If I don't know who to reach out to, how am I going to plan the marketing? How am I going to plan the strategy of talking to people? We need to know who's in front of us in order which words to use, for example, as well. For us, we started, first of all, with the people that were already in our community, people that I have worked with, parents or schools, people in the existing network, that were our day-to-day community, so to say. And this is the first starting point when you start asking for money and bringing your campaign out. You talk to these people because they are already on your side and they can already advocate for you and tell to their friends and family and whoever is there. So your crowd consists of different people, and it can be quite a complex map, which we're going to see in a moment. First of all, there is your friends and family who have this unconditional support for you. There are different sorts of advocates who speak up for you, who spread your project, who talk about your press, and who might have contacts with press and media and shout out further. Then there's your backers, the people who actually give you money. Not all the people who might see a crowdfunding campaign might give you money, but you want to think about the advocates, the people who shout out and who are valuable to have, and the people who actually give you the money for different reasons. So, and then there are also influencers, people on social media who might feel proximity or closeness to your project. Let's say for us, that was people who are passionate talking about mental health. We were identifying these people in our community, but also in the wider community, and reaching out to them. And last but not least, there's the beneficiaries, the people who actually benefit from what you do. In our case, we work with young girls. They won't be seeing the crowdfunding maybe, but their parents might see them, yeah. So for us, it was a lot about how to communicate to these people as well. And the crowd map can start quite simply. So who are possible supporters, who are your existing supporters? They can be local people, they can be press, they can be on social media, and they can be partners you already work with. I show you our really crazy crowd map. Looked more or less like this, and I've kept it throughout the whole crowdfunding campaign so we can actually gauge who we've already contacted, who we still want to contact, and who all of these people are, yeah? So this is our crowd map, and I can show you some examples of how I've created this crowd map. You can identify your crowd, your people, by different parameters. For us, a good one, a really useful one to use was geography. So you're thinking, where is my project going to take place, and the people in which areas will it impact? So looking at where are the localities of the project. Maybe it's on a national scale, maybe you're creating a product that is more widely available globally. So that would mean relevant. Yeah, what's the relevant geography for us? For us, we knew we wanted to create a project in Plymouth, but we also know we want to reach out further in the future. So we also targeted other people in the UK. We identified other people in the UK who can help us to make this project vision come true. And for me, because I come from a different country and I worked internationally, some international contacts were quite important as well to reach out to. And then you can actually define your crowd by themes as well. For us, that was working in the mental health sector and the education sector, and we worked with different girl empowerment initiatives. So what I was actually doing is to list all the relevant girl empowerment initiatives that I knew of, and I did a big internet research of who these people, who else is out there, basically. And the same for the education and mental health sector. So whatever your area of work is, if it is sustainability, you might want to reach out to local environmental organizations. You might reach out to a business that has an environmental or sustainability factor in their values. So just think about what these themes are for you, for your campaign you are trying to bring out there. And you can also think about customer groups. So for us, that was, we are working with schools, we're working with youth clubs and teachers. So we are noting on the crowd map who these people are we are already in touch with and who are the important people to talk to. And your crowd, once you have this crowd map, and throughout the whole campaign, this crowd needs to be nurtured in different ways. And you can be very creative with this one. I'm just giving you a few pointers what that can look like. You can engage, of course, engage them with media, with knowledge. For us, we're working with education. It's a lot about bringing knowledge out and letting people engage with it. You can create events or attend events to shout out about your crowdfunding campaign. You can offer incentives and rewards, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. You can offer them free content. Maybe if you're already having a website, and make it available through that, or some other internet tools that might help you with that. You can engage them with forums and online groups, speak with them in person, or give them exclusive opportunities, which also I will be talking about within the rewards. What is important is that your crowd, whoever they are, and they might be a wide variety of the population, as for us, parents, teachers, universities, but also, and I'm also going to talk about this, we talked a lot with corporates. So we're meeting very different needs, and what we need to make sure is that our crowd feels seen at all times. Otherwise, they won't engage in our crowdfunding campaign. Yeah, and one of the big questions, who is going to give us the money, and how to identify the right people to get on board with our campaign. I'm speaking from a perspective of having chosen Crowdfunded UK, and there are other websites, other crowdfunding websites that work in a similar fashion. Actually, many investors, let's say people from big companies who have a social environmental responsibility fund, people from the council, or people who simply just have a lot of money on their hands, go directly to the crowdfunding pages and browse for suitable projects for them. So one of the reasons why I chose Crowdfunding UK is because there is this aspect of, I'm looking for a location and I'm looking for a theme, and then all the projects that are live are being presented. So as you can see here, and we'll talk about this, we'll talk about the marketing a bit more. You have one picture, one little line and a subtitle to make an impression, and this is often what investors see first and what tackles their interest or not. So it's a very quick process of choosing, I think, for many of them. But it's great because many people are actually looking to put their money somewhere locally. Yeah, in our case, that was Plymouth, or in a specific region, or in a specific field of work, sustainability, mental health, for example. And then there's something on crowdfunder.uk which is called match funding, and you can go about match funding in different ways, not just on Crowdfunder UK. So it basically means that people who have funding pots, and that can be the council, or that can be banks or big organizations, are offering these funding pots for crowdfunding campaigns. And it requires a separate application. It's basically like applying for a fund, let's say the lottery fund, for example, but it is within the crowdfunding page. So actually, Crowdfund UK suggests you specific funds that are applicable to your project once you've set up your project page, and lets you submit an application. We had a substantial amount of match funding from NatWest and the Plymouth City Council and a few others. And it was really, really helpful to have these bigger sums of money coming in. So they can come from local authorities or charities or big organizations. And for some crowdfunding pages, that's within the page. For some, you might just want to make a list of charities that do similar stuff that you do, big organizations who have social responsibility funds that want to match fund you. So you can also just approach them, you know, personally, referring to a crowdfunding page, for example. So yeah, and I was talking about it already a little bit, how to reach these investors. Again, you can be really creative with this one. We were crowdfunding during the pandemic, so a lot had to be online or via the phone. In our personal network, we were just having loads of conversations and sending personal messages. With the community organizations, what you can do, if it's safe to do so, is to attend events, call them, email them. Often local community organizations have also little funding pots that they might want to share, or they want to arrange an exchange with you of some sorts. For example, we had a pledge from Nudge in Plymouth, and they gave us an amount of money, and we are submitting some workshops for them. So it was a really nice way of also getting involved with local community organizations. In the case of local councillors, there are local funding pots. I'm speaking for England, I don't know how it is in other countries. There are funding pots that each councillor has access to, but there are deadlines to it. So you have to find out when these councillors are distributing their money pots. They might just want to pledge to your project if you make it known to them. So what I have been actually doing is to create big email lists and reach out to these councillors, and some really nice connections have come from this one as well. In terms of bigger cooperations or bigger companies, you can also create these databases for yourself and then contact them. It's a little bit harder to get through to them. Might involve some phone calls and some emails, identifying the right person. You can look for Social Environmental Responsibility Fund, or a sort of sponsoring department that the big corporations usually have in place. So they also have money on their hands. Maybe especially look for something that is close to your mission. Yeah, again, if it's about sustainability, maybe choose a company that cares for sustainability. One of the big questions for us was, how are we being taken serious if we actually haven't got a business model, we weren't set up as a company. So I basically started out as a self-employed person, and the rest came a little bit later. But there was a big question for me. So I wanted us to look professional, at least, and set up, because we've already been doing what we've been doing just in a self-employed capacity. So we actually asked some local organizations, some bigger networks we are part of, and some UK-wide organizations, and actually a global one as well, to back us with their logos, basically. So that gave us credibility for people that potentially wanted to give us money. So they saw we were part of the voluntary sector organization, we're part of the social network, social enterprise network, and some relevant organizations for mental health and safeguarding, which in our sector is really important. So again, whatever that is for you, surround yourself with these people who want to support your project, maybe also just with giving their logo on your crowdfunding page. And again, once you have already generated some income, some money from the crowdfunding campaign, make these backers that already backed you visible on your crowdfunding page. It will show other people that this project is worth supporting. We have also worked a lot with testimonials, because we wanted especially people in the community to identify with our project and what we are doing. So we gave some testimonials from young girls, from parents, and so on, who have already experienced our services. And as the comments from the crowdfunding supporters came in, we were also making them visible on our page. So I'm saying fake it till you make it, because I've just been self-employed and eventually incorporated as a company, which gives you more credibility in my experience. but until you're there, just give the people the feeling that what you're doing is valuable, and your passion and your enthusiasm will also back your project. But I think in my opinion, it's really important to surround yourself with people who've already done that. Big question is, how do we tell a story for a crowdfunder? And there are a million ways you can go about it. So I'm asking you, what is your once upon a time? What is the way that you bring your product or your service out? And a few small components that are important in every story is definitely the protagonist and the scenery. So again, the question, how does your crowd identify with what you're doing? Do you want to show some local faces? Do you want to show the process of how your product is being made? There can be very different ways to show that, but we need some people. We always need people. We are people. We identify with people. And maybe if it's about a specific environment, it's also really nice to see where does an activity take place, how is that product being made, and so on. And we need, especially for crowdfunding story, we need a balance of facts and feeling. The feeling, so we can identify with what's being offered, and the facts, because we are people who want to know as well, and we want to know where our money goes and all of these things. Visually appealing, our story should be, and again thinking about how do we talk to these bunch of people who are going to support us. And a really important factor is that your story isn't too long, so that you don't take away too much time, but give substantial information at the same time about what you are offering. So be short, sweet, and make it accessible for different needs. You've got different tools to do so. I'm talking here mostly about tools for the actual crowdfunding page. Once you've set that up, they are the video. The video is really important. I'm going to talk about it in more detail. The text and pictures, the language that you choose, visual language as well as verbal language. The social media that you can use for yourself, and maybe also infographics. So I won't show you our crowdfunding video here, but I'm gonna share it in the chat after this. Our video was all about the young girls and how we're gonna engage them in a really interactive curriculum. And I'm just showing you a few pictures about that in a moment. So the video is really the heart of the crowdfunding campaign. I've seen crowdfunding campaigns without videos, and some of them also make it, and I'm just sharing my opinion here and how I feel what worked for us. So we've just been showing how we engaged the young girls in activities. We had a voiceover, and we had parts with a speaker view where I was mostly speaking, and we had made some beautiful portraits of our community that we weaved into the crowdfunding campaign video as well. And if you have no clue where to find a videographer, you can of course do it yourself, but I recommend actually to do it professionally. And if you're crowdfunding that successfully, then part of that money can already be calculated to go towards a videographer. Maybe there is a local, excuse me, a local university close to you that has an arts department where you can find someone who really wants to gain some work experience and help you out. That could be a way. Or you look on one of the volunteering platforms or local networks in your area, in social media, and so on. What worked for us really well in creating the video is to use some powerful metaphorical language as well. We started our crowdfunding video with "It takes a village to raise a child," which summed up our whole vision of how do we want this project to unfold. And we wanted to draw everyone in. We wanted to be everyone part of the community that cares for girls' well-being. So this is what we used. We showed real people in a real life scenario in Plymouth where we want to create our project, and engaged people. Yeah, with the video being very dynamic, but not longer than 2.5, 3 minutes. So this is kind of the maximum you want to take from people's time, and you want to catch them quickly with your message. Yeah. We've also used quite a lot of infographics to get this mixture of feeling and facts, of underlining why is it important. We use some buzzwords in a very balanced manner. Yeah, we talk about mental health. We also talk about the bit heavy stuff. Like for us, it was about preventing suicide. Yes, one of our big impacts we wanted to make by nurturing girls' well-being. So we have created an emotional draw. We brought some realism in there where it needed to be balanced with lightness and with our positive mission, of course. But that was a big one to strike this balance. Again, we put images from our community, from our work in there, which gave people an idea what it's going to be like. And the big social media was really, really important for us. So we were asking ourselves, okay, how in the pandemic are we going to do this? How are we going to create content and engage people to give us money and to support our project? And we know now that 4.2 billion people worldwide use social media. So we needed to identify, again, looking at our crowd map, where they hang out. For us, that was more Facebook and Instagram. Had to do with a lot of parents being part of our community and engaging in parenting forums on Facebook, for example. But you just got to ask yourself the question, which medium is more for me? We know that TikTok is a bit more for young people if you want to reach younger people. And we know that Twitter and LinkedIn are often populated with a lot of businesses. We've used Twitter for a little bit as well to reach more businesses and get outreach there. So, and some people don't hang around much on social media, but they appreciate newsletters. We started writing newsletters regularly and used email marketing and blogs as well to reach other parts of our community. So you need to understand how to speak to your crowd and where they hang out. We have created different types of content, especially to engage people and draw them into the topics that we're teaching. Puberty changes, get them to reflect about their own journey in this. We've created video stories, informative posts, blog articles, links to external content, what other people have been doing, and especially calls to action, so people are engaged. We've hashtagged, we've tagged influencers into the right posts. So again, thinking, what do these people advocating for, let's say mental health or sustainability, what are they interested in? What's that content that draws them into our campaign? So there are just some images that we've been sharing on different social media. And we've actually created a persona, the big sis, for our campaign, which goes through different feelings, because we're teaching about feelings as well, and we're teaching about the menstrual cycle. So the big sis goes through her different menstrual cycle experiences and shares the content alongside. So you can be really creative in what you are gonna share, and just thinking how does it speak to people. And not just hang in with the 2 more days to donate posts, which can be a bit annoying. I mean, there need to be some of these for sure, but how do you give people value for what they are receiving? So we engage them with questions, some emotional images, some updates from what's happening. So, and the big question is, what do we offer in return for the reward-based crowdfunding? So there is a lot of different things you can do. Personally, I have to say rewards didn't really work very well for us. Most people just gave free donations and didn't want anything in return. It might be different for you if you're, for example, creating a product and they really want this product. You could offer your product, the first 10 or whatever, as a reward, and maybe people are really picking up on that one. Some people give discounts, calendars, courses, parts of their offering. They give their products as reward. It can be really, really individual. So you can be creative and brainstorm what could work well. Ask your friends and your supporters what would work well as well. And you also got to think that different people want different things. So you want to offer different values to different people. You want to start from a small donation. Our smallest donation was £1, up to £20, and people would get a workshop from us, up to the more corporate awards of 300 and plus pounds, and they would get a consulting session of some sort with one of our partners. That's what we came up with. But for you, it's to understand, what is it for me that I want to offer? Maybe you have people in your community that can help you brainstorming these. Maybe they are corporates, maybe they are people who work in certain areas or are part of a certain peer group. So just ask, get yourself help to brainstorm. And the last question I'm having is actually taking timing into considerations. How do we time our campaign? And again, this is quite individual, but a few things to consider here is, when do people actually get paid? Think about your crowd and how they get their money in. They are much more likely to give you money after they've been paid, which is for many people in the beginning of the month instead of the end of the month. Yeah. So think about these dynamics, and also maybe ask people how it would work for them, you know, starting with your friends and family. Also, something to be aware of is when public funding becomes available. I was talking about the councillors before, and they have specific deadlines which are quite individual to every council. And when they need their money to have, when they need to be spending their money by. So again, finding out about this, and you can maybe just contact the councillor presenting your project and ask when this is happening. One lesson I've learned throughout this crowdfunding campaign is that asking is really gold, and people are usually very helpful, wanting to help. So yeah, and in what order do things happen? Make yourself aware, when do you want to start planning your crowdfunder, creating? I'm talking about this timeline. So what needs to happen might shift as well, but just have this plan in the beginning that gives you the milestones, it gives you certain stops along the route, what you want to be having achieved by that time, and what you want to communicate to the outside. And yeah, also being aware of funding strategy, and when to contact whom is really important. Again, as I said before, starting with your friends and family and then getting bigger. Yeah, then maybe the community organization, then the corporates, and the council, and so on. Yeah, and again, back to the question, how do you define success? Does it mean to you financial success? Are there other things you might learn on the journey of crowdfunding, on maybe something about yourself? I have learned for myself, but also for my business, that I'm much more resilient than I thought I was, and that the crowdfunding during the pandemic has actually enabled me to recognize that, yeah, now I feel there are so many funding streams, there are so many possibilities, there's so many contacts that I can access. And there's such a big value in this. Of course, it's amazing that we've created this money, this source of income as well, and that we can have this impact with the girls. But it's really about, yeah, having built this community and having this access to so many skills and knowledge now that wasn't available to us before through crowdfunding. I'm going to share with you some guidebooks from Crowdfunding UK, which give you a bit more detailed ideas about the journey of crowdfunding and how to plan and create your launch and so on. And also, I'm going to share with you our personal campaign and an A to Z directory of different crowdfunding sources. Okay. Really happy that you're all here. Yeah, you can share questions now with me if you like. If there are any questions, just unmute yourself and we can go from there. Thank you.